Welcome, everyone, to the Beyond the Score podcast. I'm Matthew Supinger. Got my co-host here with me, Alex Perez.
Hey.
Thank you guys for tuning in today. Today, we'd like to welcome first guest podcast and a very great one to have NKU's Vice President and Director of Athletics, Christina Roybal. Thank you very much for being on today.
Thanks for the invitation.
Yeah, absolutely. It's awesome to be able to have you on and get to ask you, a lot of questions that we got about the school and the athletics and kind of the future of that and stuff like that. Yeah. Alex, did you want to kick it off with the first question?
Yeah, so you were introduced to NKU in 2022. Could you just give us a little insight on what your journey to athletic director here looked like?
Sure. I have just completed my second year, so I tell everyone I'm starting my third season. Prior to this, I was at Northern Iowa as a senior level administrator, and before that at Fresno State. So I had been there for 10 years, and that is home.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd like to say that, now living here in Northern Kentucky, I really enjoy it. And it's been a great transition for me. I'm excited about the student athletes that we have. I'm excited about the success that we've already experienced, that I've seen in the last 2 years, and that there's so much growth and there's so much opportunity for more excitement, for us to bring more students to campus and really continue to hopefully build the brand of Northern Kentucky and get on some more NCAA brackets.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. So what would you say the typical day of an athletic director looks like?
Oh my goodness. I've thought about that question a lot because I do get asked that question. Really, I think it's a lot of meetings, and it's a lot of one-on-one meetings with maybe external community members, donors, perhaps even administrators across campus. It's a lot of phone calls. It's some emails. But the typical day, I think, for the most part, it's about staying ahead of or informed on what's happening in not only here at the university, but what's happening nationally in the NCAA.
Mm-hmm.
All of that, it feeds into numerous conversations that we have at the Horizon League, the conversations that I'm having with coaches about how decisions or how things might impact their programs, what we want to do for students, the student's voice, and how do we amplify that. So it's hard to really describe a typical day. And then
Understandable.
That then we have games in the evening
Right.
and on weekends, and everyone asked me whether the summer is a lighter time for us, and not quite.
Not really, yeah.
We're getting ready for fall and getting ready for the entire academic year.
All right, so when we're talking about the different sports that we have here at NKU, what kind of decisions go into deciding what kind of sports get what kind of funding?
It's a good question. We do quite a bit of benchmarking. So let's talk about the sports that we've already had here for a few years. When we talk about benchmarking, that means we're looking at our peers within the Horizon League. Our peers in the Horizon League, we're all, to some degree, very similar in that we are institutions in major metro areas, 11 institutions, but we can benchmark about how much we're spending in terms of coaches' salaries, in terms of operating budgets, what it means to, what kind of financial commitments we're making to travel, to marketing. We're benchmarking all of it to make sure that we are kind of in line with the rest of our peers.
Okay.
And that's pretty much across the board. We're doing that on an annual basis. We all need to submit a report to the NCAA. It's typically in January, where we're talking about the expenses and our revenues every year. It gives us a chance to really look at everybody else's as well, to make sure that we're continuing to stay in line in order to stay competitive.
Well, there was some fun news in athletics recently that we're introducing a few new sports here at NKU. So could you just talk about what goes into the process of deciding which new sports to bring to the university?
Sure. It was really exciting to be asked to kind of explore this and whether this would be helpful for our institution and what this could bring to our institution. My staff and I, we looked at a total of 19 sports. One of them was football. We're looking at the full gamut of sports, and as you know, we don't have a football stadium on campus. But I think in terms of football, didn't really know where we were going to find a home. So the Horizon League is a basketball-centric conference. So we would have to find a home in another football conference, and there wasn't space for that at this point, on top of all the financial commitment on an annual basis. So we kind of put that one on the side rather quickly and started looking at the variety of other sports. We looked at sports that might require some renovation or building of new facilities on campus. We looked at ones that could require renting space off campus. And then we looked for sports that weren't going to require really any of that.
Yeah.
And that's how we landed on the ones that we proposed. We have fantastic aquatics room, pool. Made a lot of sense. What most people don't know is for a swimming and diving program, while we do have diving boards here, you don't learn how to dive in the pool. You learn how to dive on a trampoline and a big rig outside of the water. And once you learn the dive, then you can practice it in the water. Otherwise, it could be really dangerous to learn a dive in the
Makes
water.
sense. Yeah.
But that would require a renovation of a space. That would require us taking over a space to create this. And we just decided we don't want to do that. That's not what we're looking to do. Xavier actually is in the same boat as we are. They do not have a diving program either, so they were pretty excited and gave us a high five for a swim program with no dive program. Stunt made a ton of sense. We have a fantastic cheerleading program. Do you know what stunt is?
Not
Have you
really.
seen
I
it?
can't say
No.
I know too much about
The
that.
cheerleading competition, I know we do well in those, but I don't know
No?
what the stunt too much.
So stunt, it's a head-to-head competition with another team. The uniform looks like a women's volleyball uniform with cheerleading shoes. They're on mats. There's 4 quarters. There's a halftime. And both teams are performing the same routine at the same time. And every quarter, more student athletes come to the mat. So it's the flips, it's the pyramids, it's all those stunting tricks, and there's an official that awards points to one team over the other. We already have great facilities for it. It makes a lot of sense to host it in Regents. We'd be able to host a competition there. We think that a lot of fans, probably a lot of community members would be interested in coming to see that, so that makes sense.
For sure.
Triathlon. In a triathlon, the interesting thing is the minimum requirement for the number of competitions is 4. So it can be a very short season if you want it to be, which helps with budget. It's a swim, it's a bike, it's a run. You can do that all on campus. You can swim in the pool. You can bike around campus. You can run around campus. And there are some competitions where it may be 2 of the 3 elements instead of all 3 elements. So you don't necessarily have to go to an open body of water to do it. Again, makes sense with where we're at.
For sure.
And then the last one was men's volleyball. One of the fastest growing sports there is. Now a sanctioned sport within Kentucky, has been the last couple of years in Ohio, so it's quickly growing. And that would be another where we can compete in Regents. Our volleyball program, women's volleyball program, is a ticketed sport. Men's volleyball would be a ticketed sport as well. But that could drive a lot of excitement too. So in a short amount of time, in just a few years, I should also mention we're expanding our track and field program.
Okay.
So I want to say we just put out on social media that this is our biggest signing class. It's over 40 students.
I saw that, yeah.
That's awesome.
So we're really growing. And athletics, these are student athletes, but it's more so about them being students for NKU. Students that are going to wear Norse out in the community. Students that are going to be here physically on campus to go to class, to train, to compete. And then, we have tremendous coaches. They're going to graduate and they're going to continue to stay in our community. And that's what we know our student athletes do. So I'm very excited. I hope our community and our university is excited for the expansion.
Absolutely. Kind of talking about what you were just talking about with track. I've kind of interviewed a couple of track athletes, wrote a couple articles about them. We both have. I know that they just did their first. It was kind of qualified as a home match, not too long ago, and it was over at Bishop Brossart, correct?
Yes.
Is there any talks of maybe expanding to have their own track and field, facilities over here, or is it kind of just try and stick with the Bishop Brossart route?
Well, the Bishop Brossart route is because we have Tom Munninghoff, who's one of our biggest supporters here, is also a big supporter of Bishop Brossart. And so as
Okay.
he was helping them with the building of that facility, he wanted to make sure that it was collegiate caliber so that we could
okay.
use it for competition. We just
All right.
hadn't as of yet. And I can't remember the year exactly, but we just hadn't done it, and it was one of the first things when I arrived. I had a conversation with Tom, and he mentioned this, and I thought, well, let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's see how it goes.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it turned out really well. It was back in April. Everyone had a really good time. I think overall, it looked spectacular.
Mm-hmm.
For a track on campus to happen, there's kind of a few different steps that would need to take place.
Yeah.
You probably have heard about the FC Cincinnati. FC Cincinnati, their level 2 program uses Next Level Pro 2 team uses our facility, and there's discussions about how that will work when we renovate that space to accommodate their needs.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to do that, we would be also at some point creating a turf field outside of the facility with a track around it. So there's kind of a domino effect, right? Some things need to be moving, but yes, if we can get this done, we would have a track on campus.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then you said, just so that I got it right, you were at Northern Iowa before,
I
correct?
was. Uh-huh.
When you came to NKU, was there any sort of mold or game plan that you kind of had, whether it was with your staff or whether it was kind of how you were going to run things, or whether it was how if you already had coaches in mind or anything like that? Was there anything that you kind of came into NKU with that you were like, this is what I want to try and follow?
That's a good question. So at Northern Iowa, I was overseeing 14 of our 17 athletics programs here. So then in moving over, I took over, an entire department and all of the sports programs. I would say I didn't come in with one specific piece that I was working towards. What I value most about this is creating a very transformative experience for our student athletes, competing for individual and team championships, and promoting our brand.
Yeah.
Those are the three most important things to me. So you do, as a new AD, you do come in, evaluate where your programs are, evaluate how you're viewed in the community, how well people know our brand, and then go from there. So there wasn't quite one piece. I will say, though, with track and field, that might have been the one piece.
Yeah.
Because at Northern Iowa, I had between both genders, there was a team of 150 men and 50 women, roughly.
Okay.
And in order to win in track and field, you have to compete in every event.
Mm-hmm.
Mathematically, it's just impossible to win if we don't compete in all of the events. So you definitely need a bigger roster for that. But I don't think they do anything one thing. I think the smart thing to come in and really evaluate it and see what exactly you need.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you kind of had talked about, there was a little bit, brief talks of football, but it was just kind of thinking about the conference and stuff like that. Do you think in the foreseeable future or anything like that, there might be maybe more small steps taken towards that, or is it kind of more so of a thing that you put on the back burner and right now you just want to focus on what you got currently?
For football specifically?
Yes.
Yeah, back burner for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, if you are reading social media and taking a look at the news, the landscape of college athletics and name, image, and likeness is changing tremendously.
Yeah.
It's taken a lot of focus and a lot of attention, and we just have a lot to do, a lot of work to do, both in terms of starting the programs and getting more students to campus and all of that excitement, and then also figuring out how to help student athletes market their name, image, and likeness. And what are we going to do as the landscape changes? To your question about conferences and You know, we see every few years this conference realignment piece, and we're monitoring that right now. I mean, you can see that Power 5 has turned into the Power 4, right?
Yeah.
So at our level also, we're monitoring that. What do other conferences look like? And so football is definitely on a back burner. Just so much going on right now, and we're just focused on those areas.
Okay. And then, you know, NKU is such, you know, it's a mid-major program, but you look at the fans, whether it's women's basketball, whether it's or men's basketball, no matter what sport it is, you see a lot of avid fans for the school. What is it about the environment or the fans or just the teams, anything like that, that when you came to NKU that hit you the hardest and you were like, you know, this is a school that I would like to stick around with?
Yeah. I mentioned this to some people, and that the fact that we are a regional comprehensive institution was just as important to me as the fact that we're Division I. I was looking for an institution that had both of that, because at regional comprehensive, it's where the institution makes a tremendous impact on the community in terms of, you know, economic development, in terms of the students that stay and work here, I mean, stay and live here, continue to grow our communities. Those two things were incredibly important for me. And you can see that in our fans, because there's so much pride in that they're from here. I mean, one of the questions when people ask me, where'd you go to school? They're asking where you went to high school, right?
Yeah.
There's so much pride for Northern Kentucky. And you can see that in our fans, and it's pretty exciting. That's what I was looking for. I was looking for a fan base that appreciates not only the talent that student athletes put out on the field or the court, but appreciates them as human beings that then stick around and stay and contribute to the community.
And then this is the last question I got for you. NKU sports has like seemingly just taken such a huge leap, whether it's, you know, basketball getting on more of a national scale, you know, making it into March and being on live television, or whether it's baseball getting recognition for, you know, these incredible feats that they're having on the field, or like they just did, you know, they made it to the regional. What is the next step? Because of, you know, it's just taken so many huge steps the past couple of years. What is kind of the next step that you hope that this program can take and that you're going to help them take?
Well, we've had success, right? Like a kind of a sustained success in men's basketball. And then we've had this newer success in terms of softball a couple of years ago and baseball this year. That's what we're hoping for and we're working towards. We have great coaches that recruit fantastic student athletes. And just sustaining that success. We know that as a member of the Horizon League, in order to get into NCAA postseason, we have to win the tournament, right? We have to win the conference tournament, and that's the biggest focus. How do we continue to do that year in and year out? The thought of moving or doing something else to strive for something more, you know, you can always think about that down the road, but for right now, it's about how do we sustain this? How do we continue to do this? Championships are so much fun, and they're so exciting for everyone. And then, you know, it's nice when we get Northern Kentucky on an NCAA bracket. So that's what we're working towards, just doing that more frequently on a year in and year out basis. Can we do it? Can we get into a championship or two every year?
Yeah.
That's the hope.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Alex, did you have anything else you wanted to ask?
That's all I had.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you so much for having me on today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for coming on and answering some questions. It was nice having you on.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
Thank you.